All right, so we are on chapter 13, Good Progress. Far into the night, while the other creatures slept, Charlotte worked on her web. First, she ripped out a few of the orb lines near the center. She left the radial lines alone. They were needed for support. As she worked, her 8 legs were great help to her. So were her teeth. She loved to weave, and she was an expert at it. When she finished ripping things out, her web looked something like this. A spider can produce several kinds of thread. She uses a dry, tough thread for the foundation lines and a sticky thread for the snare lines, the ones that catch and hold insects. Charlotte decided to use her dry thread for writing the new message. If I write the word terrific with the sticky thread, she thought, every bug that comes along will get stuck in it and spoil the effect. Now, let's see. The first letter is T. Charlotte climbed to the point at the top of the left-hand side of the web. Swinging her spinners into position, she attached the thread and dropped down. As she dropped, her spinning tubes went into action, and she let out thread. At the bottom, she attached the thread. This formed the upper part of the T. Charlotte was not satisfied, however. She climbed up to make another attachment, right next to the first. Then she carried the line down so that it had a double line instead of a single line. This will show up better if I make the whole thing with double lines, she thought. She climbed back up and moved over about an inch to the left. She touched her spinnerets to the web and then carried a line across the right, forming the top of the T. She repeated this, making it double. Her 8 legs were very busy helping. Now for the E. Charlotte got so interested in her work, she began to talk to herself as though to cheer herself on. If you had been sitting quietly in the barn cellar that evening, you would have heard something like this. Now for the R, up we go, attach, descend, pay out line, whoa, attach, good, up you go, repeat, attach, descend, pay out line, whoa girl, steady now, attach, climb, attach, over to the right, pay out line, attach, now right, now down, swing that loop and around, now to the left, attach, climb, repeat. Okay, easy. Keep those lines together. Now, then, out and down for the leg of the R. Whoa, attach, ascend, repeat. Good girl. And so, talking to herself, the spider worked at her difficult task. When it was complete, she felt hungry. She ate a small bug that she had been saving. Then she slept. The next morning, Wilbur arose and stood beneath the web. He breathed the morning air into his lungs. Drops of dew catching the sun made the web stand out clearly. Then Lurvy arrived with breakfast. There was a handsome pig, and over him, woven neatly in block letters, was the word terrific. Another miracle. Lurvy rushed and called Mr. Zuckerman. Mr. Zuckerman rushed and called Mrs. Zuckerman. Mrs. Zuckerman ran to the phone and called the Arables. The Arables climbed in their truck and hurried over. And there is the word terrific. Everybody stood at the pig pen and stared at the web and read the word over and over, while Wilbur, who felt terrific, stood quite swelling out of his chest and swinging his snout from side to side. Terrific, breathed Zuckerman in a joyful admiration. Edith, you better phone the reporter on the Weekly Chronicle and tell him what has happened. He'll want to know about this. He might want to bring the photographer. There isn't a pig in the whole state that's terrific as our pig. The news spread. People who had journeyed to see Wilbur when he was some pig came back now to see him when he was terrific. That afternoon, when Mr. Zuckerman went to milk the cows and clean out the tie-ups, he was still thinking about the wondrous pig that he owned. Lurvy, he called. There is to be no more cow manure thrown into that pig pen. I have a terrific pig, and I want that pig to have a clean, bright straw every day for his bed. Do you understand? Yes, sir, said Lurvy. Furthermore, said Mr. Zuckerman, I want you to start building a crate for Wilbur. I've decided to take this pig to the county fair on September 6th. Make the crate large and paint it green with gold letters. What will the letters say? Said Lurvy. They should say, Zuckerman's famous pig. Lurvy picked up a pitchfork and walked away to get some clean straw. Having such an important pig was going to mean plenty of extra work, and he could see that. Below the apple orchard at the end of the path was the dump where Mr. Zuckerman threw all sorts of trash and stuff that nobody wanted anymore. Here in a small clearing hidden by young alders, and wild raspberry bushes was an astonishing pile of old bottles and empty cans and dirt rags and bits of metal and broken bottles and broken hinges and broken springs and dead batteries and last month's magazines, old discarded dish mops, tattered overalls, rusty spikes, leaky pails, forgotten stoppers, useless junk of all kinds, including the wrong size crank for a broken ice cream freezer. Templeton knew the dump and liked it. There were good hiding places, excellent cover for a rat, and there were usually a tin can with food still clinging to the inside. Templeton was down there now, rummaging around. When he returned to the barn, he carried in his mouth an advertisement that he had torn from a crumpled magazine. "How's this?" he asked, showing the ad to Charlotte. "It says crunchy, crunchy. That would be a good word for your web." "Just the wrong idea," replied Charlotte. "Couldn't be worse. We don't want Zuckerman to think Wilbur is crunchy. He might start thinking about crispy, crunchy bacon and tasty ham, and that would put ideas into his head. We must advertise Wilbur's noble qualities and not his tastiness. Get another word, please, Templeton." The rat looked in disgust, but he sneaked away to the dump, and while his back was the strip of cotton cloth. "How is this?" he asked. "It's a label off of a shirt." Charlotte examined the label. It said pre-shrunk. "I'm sorry, Templeton," she said, "but pre-shrunk is out of the question. We want Zuckerman to think Wilbur is a nicely filled out, not shrunk up. I'm going to have to ask you to try again." "Well, what do you think I am, the messenger boy?" grumbled the rat. "I'm not going to spend all my day chasing down to the dump and after advertising material for you." "Just one more, please," said Charlotte. "I'll tell you what I'll do," said Templeton. "I know where there's a package of soap flakes in the woodshed. It has writing on it. I'll bring you a piece of that package." He climbed the rope that hung on the wall and disappeared through the hole in the ceiling. When he came back, he had a strip of blue and white cardboard in his teeth. "There," he said triumphantly. "How's that?" Charlotte read the words, "with new radiant action." "What does it mean?" asked Charlotte, who had never used any soap flakes in her life. "How should I know?" said Templeton. "You asked for the words and I brought them. Next thing I know, you want me to be fetching a dictionary." Together they studied the soap ad. "With new radiant action," repeated Charlotte. "With new radiant action," repeated Charlotte again slowly. "Wilbur," she called. Wilbur, who was asleep in the straw, jumped up. "Run around," commanded Charlotte. "I want to see you in action. I need to see if you're radiant." Wilbur raced to the end of the yard and back again faster. "Go faster," said Charlotte. Wilbur galloped back. His skin shone. His tail was a fine, tight curl. "Jump in the air," said Charlotte. Wilbur jumped as high as he could. "Keep your knees straight and touch the ground with your ears," said Charlotte. Wilbur obeyed. "Do a backflip with a half a twist in it," cried Charlotte. Wilbur went backwards, withering and twisting as he went. "All right, Wilbur," said Charlotte. "I guess you can go back to sleep." "Okay, Templeton, the soap ad will do, I guess. I'm not sure that Wilbur's action is exactly radiant, but it's interesting." "Actually," said Wilbur, "I feel radiant." "Do you?" said Charlotte, looking at him with affection. "Well, you're a good little pig, and radiant you shall be. I'm in this thing pretty deep now, so I might as well go to the limit." Tired from his romp, Wilbur lay down in the clean straw. He closed his eyes, and the straw seemed scratchy, not as comfortable as the cow manure, which he was always delightful and soft to lay in. He pushed the straw to one side and stretched out in the manure. Wilbur sighed. It'd been a busy day, his first day of being terrific. Dozens of people had visited his yard this afternoon, and he had to stand and pose, looking as terrific as he could. So now he was tired. Fern had arrived and seated herself quietly on the stool in the corner. "Tell me a story, Charlotte," said Wilbur as he laid waiting for sleep to come. "Please tell me a story." So Charlotte, although she too was tired, did what Wilbur wanted. "Once upon a time," she began, "I had a beautiful cousin who managed to build her web across a small stream. One day a tiny fish leaped into the air and got tangled in the web. My cousin was very much surprised, of course. The fish was thrashing wildly. My cousin had hardly dared tackle it, but she did. She swooped down and threw great masses of wrapping material around the fish and fought bravely to capture it." "Did she succeed?" asked Wilbur. "It was never to be forgotten battle," said Charlotte. There was the fish, caught by only one fin, and its tail wildly thrashing and shining in the sun. There was the web, sagging dangerously under the weight of the fish. How much did the fish weigh? Asked Wilbur eagerly. I don't know, said Charlotte. There was my cousin, slipping in, dodging out, mercilessly over the head of the wildly thrashing fish, dancing in and out, throwing her threads and fighting hard. First, she threw a left around the tail. The fish lashed back, then a left to the tail and a right to the midsection, and the fish lashed back. Then she dodged to one side and threw a right and another right to the fin, then a hard left to the head, while the web swayed and stretched. Then what happened? Asked Wilbur. Nothing, said Charlotte. The fish lost the fight, and my cousin wrapped it up so tight it couldn't budge. Then what happened? Said Wilbur. Nothing, said Charlotte. My cousin kept the fish for a while, and then she got good and ready, and she ate it. Wow, tell me another story, begged Wilbur. So Charlotte told him about one of her other cousins who was an astronaut. What is an astronaut? Asked Wilbur. A balloonist, said Charlotte. My cousin used to stand on her head and let out enough thread to form a big balloon, and then she'd let go and be lifted into the air and carried upward toward the warm wind. Is that true? Asked Wilbur. Or are you just making that up? No, it's true, replied Charlotte. I have some very remarkable cousins. And now, Wilbur, it's time for you to go to sleep. Sing something, begged Wilbur, closing his eyes. So Charlotte sang a lullaby while the crickets chirped. In the grass and the barn it grew dark. This was the song she sang. Sleep, sleep, my love, my only, deep, deep in the dung and the dark. Be not afraid and be not lonely. This is the hour when frogs and thrushes praise the world from the woods and the rushes. Rest from care, my one and only, deep in the dung and the dark. But Wilbur was already asleep. When the song ended, Fern got up and went home.